When I returned home to see my beloved wife, I was met with a stunning scene. She was laying in bed with her lover, who also happened to be her boss. At first, I wanted to push them out, but things got worse when her lover began embarrassing and harassing me. I became enraged and resolved to exact revenge. I am sitting in a prison cell and will not agree to any inducement to reduce the accusations of assault and battery. I told my folks my story in the hopes of explaining how I ended up in this circumstance. If I had taken advantage of these opportunities, I could have avoided jail time, community service, and potentially saved my marriage. But since this episode, my marriage is no longer a priority. At least my liberty would have been protected. My name is Ronald Jacobs. I'm 29 years old and worked on a construction site before being imprisoned. I was once happily married to Kaylee, who was also 29 years old, and I believed her to be my life partner. When I say I was married, I mean just that. We are in the process of divorcing. Kaylee, who formerly worked as a secretary for one of the partners at a legal company, may still be in this position as far as I know. It is obvious where everything is going. Some persons in positions of authority frequently have a mistress at home to elevate the prestige of their family, and any woman under the age of 50 is considered a potential target. When presented with the opportunity to wield their influence, these individuals do not hesitate. They understand how to use the legal system to their advantage and frequently have the financial resources to get the desired outcome. Randolph Wiseman is one such person. Randy's father founded a business, and he loved his success until he made a few significant blunders. I must say that I completely understand his attraction to women. Randy was tall and powerfully muscular with a permanently tanned skin. He was just under 40 years old, and my wife kept pointing out how handsome he was. I wasn't offended by her compliments because I recognized the attractiveness of our friends and even odd women we met. We were upfront and honest with each other, understanding that in a world of nearly 8 billion people, it is human nature to find others beautiful. Kaylee has never given me reason to question her loyalty. I used to believe that we were inseparable and entirely devoted to one another. However, despite her insistence that nothing has changed, I am having difficulty understanding her position in light of recent events. Although being in prison allowed me to choose who I talked to, I had shut off communication with Kaylee since my incarceration. Despite attempts by our lawyers, family, and concerned friends, I've made it obvious to everyone involved that I will discuss Kaylee again, and any communication between us will be cut off. After being harassed by several friends and Kaylee's sister, I choose to remove myself from them and refuse to communicate with them. My lawyer, seeing he was on thin ice, didn't want to pass up the opportunity to profit from my impending divorce. As a mercantile lawyer, he saw an opportunity to earn a big quantity of money, despite the fact that I was facing a 10-year term for serious assault and bodily harm. I ended up receiving a 2-year sentence. I was fortunate to have the judge who heard my case, and I suspected his personal experience affected his decision. I believe his wife was unfaithful to him throughout the trial and sentencing. He stated that I had been subjected to significant provocations by my wife and her partner, as well as the latter's disrespectful behavior. However, he also stated that some of the injuries were not caused by self-defense, and that some of them warranted a lengthy prison sentence. He said that if I accepted to the district attorney's plea deal, I could save the state from having to go to trial. I've been serving my term for 8 months, and am hoping to be released in a year if I continue to behave well, especially since I had a spotless record before this incident. When I am liberated, I want to exact retribution and cause agony on those who have injured me, no matter the repercussions. Even if it means returning to prison, they will all receive what they deserve, particularly that vile bastard. Simply put, this is what I sent to my folks. Dear parents, I apologize for bringing you embarrassment as a result of my conduct in prison. It was not my purpose to bring. Shame on you. I was faced with a decision. I could either face the consequences, live with the guilt of what I had done, or accept a plea deal to avoid going to prison. I hope you can see why I couldn't live with this sensation. My feelings for Kaylee were strong and genuine, and I truly believed that our relationship was meant to last. But I was mistaken about her character. I never suspected her relationship with Wiseman, even when she casually acknowledged his good looks. But what does it matter? After all, lots of people are gorgeous. One day, the direction of my life changed dramatically. We finished a significant remodeling of the house this morning. We had a drink with the team at lunch and went about our business. When I arrived home, I saw a BMW parked in the driveway, but Carly's car was nowhere to be found. This immediately created concern because I had never questioned her allegiance before. Someone had obviously driven her home in a fancy automobile. As soon as I walked inside her calm house, my attention was pulled to the sounds coming from above, so I went to our bedroom. I discovered my wife with her boss, which was extremely heartbreaking. While they were ignorant of my presence, her employer blatantly commented that he was a true guy in comparison to me. I felt a flood of rage pour over me, and for a little minute I was paralyzed. Despite his outward appearance, I realized his true power resided in hard labor, something he, with his toned figure, would never grasp without thinking. I grabbed him by the hair, drew him away from her, and pressed him against the wall. I looked at Carly, who appeared shocked by the incident. I sternly advised her to pack her belongings and leave. Randolph brushed me off and pretended to be cool. "So you think you are cool?" He chuckled, but before he could finish his sentence, I slapped him in the face with all of my force, causing him to stagger. I told him he wasn't welcome in my home and could try his luck elsewhere. I cautioned him that if he stayed, he would have serious regrets. Wiseman recklessly chose to ignore my words and swing at me without thinking. I grabbed his wrist and immediately twisted it behind him. I warned him again. He began shrieking that if I even touched him, he would ensure that I spend a large amount of time in prison and would stay with Carly while I was away. He added that I was a pitiful excuse for a man. His arrogant expression vanished as it continued to squeeze, producing a terrible crunch that echoed across the room. When he screamed in pain, I knocked him down to the floor. Carly rushed up to me and begged, "Stop it, Ron. If you continue to act in this manner, he may arrest you. Please stop." "Are you more concerned about your boyfriend, Carly?" I snapped back. "Now, Ron, I am concerned about you. I do not want him or me to ruin your life. I was a fool," she admitted. I looked at her coldly and said, "It is no longer your business." She attempted to approach me, overwhelmed with emotion. I eventually spat in her face, which I now regret greatly. She continued on regardless of my actions. I yelled at her to pack her belongings and leave, calling her a disgraceful person who I no longer wanted to meet. To my surprise, she obeyed in gathering her, and she began to cry. I turned to Wiseman and added, "Your actions do not match your name. You are a jerk. A person of intelligence would never purposefully incite people like me, especially with disrespectful expressions like peeping. Unless they are looking for trouble, as you are, pay attention. As soon as this woman finishes packing, you will leave as well. I recommend that she take you to the emergency room to relieve your pain. Don't return here anymore. My grandfather gave me this house before we married. She has no rights to it, so do not try. If you do, I won't hesitate to take more serious measures next time. If you don't want to end up in a hospital bed or in a wheelchair, stay away from me. It's your responsibility now. Either bring her home to meet your family or get rid of her. I don't care." Behind me, Carly let out a desperate moan. But I stood my ground. "Carly, I'm far from perfect, and I'll never forget what you did. You're an insidious liar. Maybe you should have been more careful and booked a hotel room. Then maybe I wouldn't have found out the truth. I hit him hard on the sensitive area. Was this your devious plan? Do it in my bed." Another blow followed, causing him to cry out in horror. "Remember, if you give me even the slightest reason in the future, I will completely ruin your life." Dear Mom and Dad, I decided to explain to you how everything went wrong between Carly and me. I know it was harsh, but I hope you can understand my point of view. I am in the process of divorcing her, and as soon as it is completed, I will be free from this toxic relationship. I have no intention of looking back or even acknowledging its existence. My last memory of her will be an insulting act. I spat in her face, which unfortunately seemed justified at that moment. I appreciate your support during this difficult time, but I must admit that I have lost faith in the institution of marriage. I can't imagine ever being able to trust another woman the way I trusted Carly. It pains me to say this, but she betrayed that trust in a way I could never have imagined. I'm sorry, Mom, but I didn't hesitate to trust Carly, and now I see the consequences of this decision. That night led to my arrest and the beginning of all this chaos. Wiseman did his best to get me behind bars, provided the sheriff's office with detailed reports on my injuries, and enlisted the help of a friend in the district attorney's office to bring charges against me. Among those charges was aggravated assault, a crime for which I could have been jailed for up to 10 years. He managed to convince Carly to press charges against me for spitting in her face after my arrest. The trial began. It turned out that Carly decided to drop the assault charge against me, considering it insignificant with the help of a lawyer. I received a plea offer from the district attorney. The deal included a plea of guilty to misdemeanor assault, a 6-month suspended sentence, and payment of Wiseman's medical bills. This offer was conditional on 2 conditions. First, Wiseman demanded that I sign an agreement in which I promised to keep secret the information that I had recently shared with my wife about the attack. Second, I was asked to postpone my divorce from Carly until we completed a marriage counseling course. These conditions seemed to them to be a way to find an easy way out of the situation. But I did not want to agree. Instead, I decided to turn down the offer and stand trial. Despite the fact that my lawyer regarded this proposal as positive since it was possible to avoid imprisonment, he also warned me that if the trial did not go in my favor, then I would face a long term of imprisonment up to 10 years. I began to doubt that he really understood the gravity of the situation, the dramatic events that had occurred in my own home, and that Wiseman had shown me such disrespect. Despite the possible consequences, I was determined to take revenge at any cost. I wasn't afraid of going to jail. I felt prepared and confident in my ability to cope with life behind bars. I was sure that when I was released, I would be able to find a job in construction. Despite my criminal record, I was determined to fight for justice and not let anyone disrupt my life. I didn't want to reconcile with Carly. She disappeared from my life forever. As the days passed, I was informed that a visitor had come to see me since relatives had already come a few days ago. I thought it was them again. But when they brought me into the room, Carly was there and I quickly called the guards. They came to see what was going on, and I strongly demanded that they no longer let this woman come to see me. She tried to say that she was my wife, but they escorted her out, saying that I had the right not to let visitors in. I turned to a lawyer for advice and started the divorce process. I asked my lawyer about the possibility of litigation with Carly's employer and her boss, Wiseman. He informed me that although alienation of affection lawsuits are allowed in our state, none of them have been successful in 2 decades. At the same time, he mentioned that the company may prefer to settle the case out of court to avoid public outcry, and we could emphasize their lack of moral values. I also asked about the consequences of resolving a legal dispute before or after our divorce. He gave a direct answer. He suggested waiting until after the divorce to reduce the estate before coming to an agreement. Our house is safe, but she will get half of the rest of the property. I will resolve this issue with them after the divorce. If you happen to talk to her, please don't discuss any of this with her. I know that you both loved her, but I believe that you will not disappoint me. Mom and Dad, I appreciate both of you. In this situation is temporary. I hope you now understand the whole story, not just the one that Carly and a few friends told me who thought I should forgive her before I was released. There was a hitch in the divorce process. Carly demanded that certain conditions be met. I had to either agree to consultations, and she had suggested earlier, or allow her 3-hour visits during which we had to talk. She knew that I could easily brush her off during these visits. Despite my strong desire to end the divorce, I decided that 3 short consultations were better than the initial court requirement. I briefly thought about giving up both options, serving my time and then disappearing, but I was determined not to let her kick me out of the house, especially since my parents were approaching retirement and wanted me, their only son, in their lives, while they were getting old. The very thought of being in her presence made my skin crawl, but against my better judgment, I agreed to her offer of 3 visits. I reassured myself that if the situation became too unbearable, I could always ask for help to get her kicked out. During my first visit, Carly greeted me with a casual, "Hi, Ron. You look decent considering everything that's going on." I couldn't suppress my rage and replied, "Go to hell, Carly. Carly, it's your fault that you couldn't control yourself and slept with your boss. Say what you need to say and then get out." Carly's attempt to bring me to tears just disgusted me. I no longer cared about her sentiments. I just detested her. realizing that hate is not the reverse of love, but rather a love that has been damaged beyond recognition. I've not yet reached the point of mature indifference where thoughts about my ex-partner cease to matter. I aspire to acquire this condition of utter indifference in the near future. Ron, I'm surprised by the damage I've done to you in a relationship, Carly stated. You're not the only one who looks at things that way. I answered, Ron, could you just listen to me without resorting to insults? She asked. I can hear you, Carly, but I'm not interested in hearing what you have to say. You cheated on me in her own home, in her bed, with a man who mistreated and humiliated me. How could you ask me to forgive, forget, or even endure your presence in my life? Carly's face grew pale and tears flowed down her cheeks. That's why I wanted 3 meetings, she explained. I am not feeling well today, but I will be back. My love for you is unshakable, regardless of your thoughts. I consent to these 3 encounters, but please understand that I carry a profound animosity against you for causing us harm. I despise both your deeds and you. Reconciliation is not an option for me. Following these meetings, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. She stood in silence and lightly knocked on the door, requesting permission to leave. A week later, another visitor appeared on the porch. My mother. Despite my cautions, I decided she had come to speak with me about Carly. Ron, I understand you are afraid to bring this up, she began. I appreciate that this may have a detrimental impact on our relationship, but please allow me to share my views. I agreed, allowing her the chance to speak. You hold a particular place in my heart, but this is a one-time request. Okay, Mom, I had to cut her out of my life. Whatever you say, nothing will change. I am going to adore you anyway. My mother replied, Thank you, son. I adore you more than anyone else, even your father. I understand what she did. You can't be pardoned, but I'd like to discuss this for your sake, not for her sake. I do not expect you to forgive her or give her a second opportunity. She does not deserve it. You deserve a trustworthy spouse. But Ron, what I'm about to say is for your own good. You may feel as if you loathe her right now, and this is entirely possible. However, you will not find peace in your life unless you let go of all of this hatred. I'm just asking that you talk to her without being aggressive or verbally attacking. She approached me last week hoping to strike up a discussion. Ron, she is severely traumatized, completely broken. She is concerned that she was duped by this devious man and ultimately betrayed you. She acknowledges she has lost you and recognizes the gravity of your remarks from the prior visit. You brought her as much misery as you wanted. If your purpose was to break her, you've succeeded. I am simply asking you to listen to her without insisting that you change your views. I understand you will not do it, and neither will she. Even if it appears that there is no way to remedy everything, please allow her to go with dignity, out of respect for those good times you shared together. Imagine how you'll feel 10 years from now if it turns out that your statements influenced her decision to kill herself. Mom, I can be indifferent and say, and I don't care what's happening to her right now, but you're correct. Anger will subside over time, making place for guilt in the present situation. I wouldn't want to live with the guilt over her acts. Thanks for your wise remarks, Mom. I'll quit trying to make her life miserable. I truly loved her with all of my heart. However, it appears like divorce is the only way out. I'll be released from prison shortly, and I'm determined to stay free forever. I am grateful to you and Dad for your ongoing love and support. I could not have asked for better parents. Thank you for guiding me to this conclusion, Mom. I know it's the correct decision for me, even if it's not the best one for Carly. A few days later, Carly approached me again, and this time I initiated the conversation. First, Carly, I'd like to apologize for my prior behavior. Looking back, I see that my statements were harsh and lacked of civility. You are deserving. After conversing with my mother, I learned how vital it is to be kind, especially after all the fantastic moments we had together before everything went upside down. Thank you, Ron, and thank you very much to your mother for her support. Even though I didn't ask for it, I recognize that I may not have another shot with you, but I feel compelled to convey my regret for my actions. To be entirely honest, you are the best person I have ever met or will ever know. Perhaps we can avoid a third encounter. I do not want to disturb you any further, but I believe it is vital to resolve the matter. Despite the fact that I am nearly 30 years old, I behaved like a child. I allowed myself to be persuaded by an older man who appeared smart and lavished me with attention, resulting in the betrayal of the person I actually love. I now realize how dumb I was. Ron. I made a mistake, which I really regret. He used a small amount of money and compliments on my attractiveness to control me, and I fell for it. I was naive and ignorant, falling for superficial flattery. Most of all, I regret allowing him into our bed more than any other aspect of my treachery. I have no justifications for my behavior, and I am aware of the gravity of my mistake. His urge to engage in the unlawful act of being with a married lady in her husband's bed compelled me to make a heinous decision that resulted in profound contempt for you. I sincerely apologize, Ron. I now understand that you have the right to seek divorce. My acts demonstrate a lack of self-esteem, and if I can't respect myself, how can I expect you to love me the way you did before? I'm still hoping to save our marriage, but now I understand that this is impossible. My heart is torn because you're the only person I've ever truly loved. I am ready to sign all of the divorce papers as soon as feasible. Ron, you deserve more than me. You are a fantastic person and will be an excellent father. I've always wanted to start a family with you and grow old together. If there is anything I can ask of you, this is it. Please do not allow my faults jeopardize your future. You deserve to be with a lady who will make you happy and support you as you establish a lovely life together. May your family be proud of you and cherish one another. I'd like to be that kind of lady for you, but I lack the confidence to change anything. Perhaps one day you will recall our time together fondly. Rather than focusing on how I let you down, I've given my word. Now it is time for me to leave. I want you to know that I made mistakes that had an impact on my own life, but just don't let my actions destroy yours. My feelings for you will always be there. Goodbye, Ron. Despite everything that had happened, I felt genuinely affected. I told her, my Carly, you're correct. We cannot repair our relationship. Everything is clear to me now. I'll never be able to regain the trust I once had in you. But today, you reminded me of the woman I once loved. Carly, I want you to know that while I can't love you again without trust, I no longer harbor animosity towards you. I hope you find happiness, Carly. A mistake does not make you bad. It simply means that you are not right for me. Goodbye, Carly. We shared a brief hug before she left. She clearly struggled to say these words. She admitted her flaws and stupidities, but nothing she said could alter my decision to end our marriage. Carly agreed to sign the papers without requiring another meeting. She fulfilled her promise by signing the divorce papers, which marked the start of our divorce proceedings pending a final decision. Shortly after, Carly and I had our final breakup. I received confirmation of my release date from prison. After I was released, my parents came to pick me up. I spent all of my time in prison. I was determined to make Randolph Wiseman's life difficult by strictly adhering to the law. The day after my release, I met with my lawyer to discuss our plans to bring justice to Wiseman. Even though I served a year in prison for my actions against him, I believed that his punishment was insufficient. When I discovered him in my bed with Carly, he threatened me with imprisonment, so I physically assaulted him. Was it worth spending a year in prison? I don't think so. He only received a small portion of what he deserved. I was determined to send his life into a tailspin. My lawyer and I devised a strategy for holding Wiseman accountable. Our initial plan was to contact his firm and inform them that we intended to sue for negligence, to prevent future relationships between his employees. We anticipated that they would most likely reject our request, citing a lack of similar cases investigated in the state over the previous 2 decades. As a next step, we intended to launch a media campaign to promote our cause. The story goes like this. The husband, feeling insulted publicly, talks about how he found his wife with the boss in their house. He tells how Wiseman humiliated him until he had to physically expel this lawyer from his territory. Subsequently, the husband was arrested on charges associated with Wiseman and the district attorney and spent a year in prison for assault. In addition, Wiseman's actions played a significant role in the ongoing divorce proceedings. Thanks to my lawyer's connections with a journalist who had a grudge against Wiseman, our strategy bore fruit. The story got into the newspapers and attracted the attention of the national press. We assumed that Wiseman's associates would want to avoid a scandal and would prefer to settle the case out of court. My ultimate goal was to destroy Wiseman's marriage just as he destroyed mine. I decided to postpone my revenge until I had settled matters with the law firm. Our expectations regarding the result turned out to be absolutely correct. Although the company rejected our claims and confidently stated that we would not win anything in court. Chaos broke out in the company after my lawyer sent the letter. All traces of their former equanimity disappeared. Their tension was palpable. They even threatened bankruptcy if I talked to the media, unaware that I was already on the verge of financial collapse. Facing a year behind bars with almost no savings, invade prospects for the future. Strangely enough, difficult circumstances made me immune to the fear of bankruptcy. When my lawyer contacted them again, he emphasized the seriousness of my situation and offered to take up the case for free, due to the blatant injustice my unfortunate husband had been subjected to. They requested a face-to-face meeting at their office. When we entered the conference room, we found ourselves face-to-face with Randolph Wiseman. As I sat down, he couldn't help but quip, well, look who's here, the little cuckold himself. I heard you came to beg. Did you have a good time behind bars? Thanks to me and the district attorney? I knew you were too foolish to accept the deal. He offered Randolph. I asked you not to talk to me in that tone. Now you've earned yourself another trip to the cheerleader doctor, I retorted furiously. At this time, William Wiseman, another descendant of the company's founder, intervened in the conversation. Come on, Randolph, stop playing the tough guy. We're attempting to find a solution, not aggravate the situation. So if you can't keep silent, you should let others deal with it. Feeling a little offended by his partner's criticism, Randolph sheepishly answered, Okay, William, I understand. We've known one another for a long time. That's why we're here. Let's hear them out. My lawyer, Giles, interjected in the conversation. Gentlemen, our purpose and expressed in our letter is simple. We want to make a claim for alienation of affection, although some may consider this a trivial matter with little prospect of success. We believe otherwise. This is a very unusual opportunity for us to earn considerable recognition for your law company. With the help of a resourceful journalist. However, the story of Mr. Jacobs' treachery and imprisonment, which was made possible by the links between a partner of this firm and the prosecutor, may not get the attention you were looking for. Howard Green, senior partner and the eldest son of Arnold Green, one of the firm's founders, intervened. My client lost his wife and spent a year in prison as a result of your partner Randolph Wiseman's acts. If not for Wiseman's inappropriate behavior, my client would be happily married and working for free. This firm has caused serious damage to my client, and if a lawsuit does not resolve the issue, we will examine alternative actions. I must inform you that my journalist colleague's ex-wife works at this company. Could you guess which partner she obeyed? He is particularly interested in damaging your public image. Giles stated that Peter Cooper, who had remained silent up until that point, let out a startled scream. Indeed, he stated, giving Wiseman a contemptuous look as if he were a bothersome particle on a shoe. Giles resumed his remarks, noting that, while we believe $1 million is insufficient, it is an appropriate amount to handle the company's current issue. Peter Cooper interrupted him again. We will let you know our decision by the end of the day. Good afternoon, Mr. Jacobs. I regret for any inconvenience given by this individual, he said, exiting the room with obvious disappointment. It quickly became evident that the partners were not only willing to pay compensation, but also chose to buy out Wiseman's shares at a drastically discounted price, thereby removing him from the list of partners. They needed my signature to publicly acknowledge the final settlement of the case with their firm and avoid future claims. Another aspect of my difficulty has been settled, allowing me to focus on other issues. My major purpose was to get back at Wiseman, and I didn't need legal assistance, just my determination and a little bit of planning. I began getting to know Wiseman's wife. She was a regular at the gym, visiting 4 times a week to keep her physique, despite having 3 children. Although she was slightly fuller in the hips than previously, she was still stunningly gorgeous, and I puzzled why someone like her wasn't enough for Wiseman. After 2 weeks of studying her daily routine, I discovered an unusual pattern in which she visited the home of a man 10 years younger than her. One Wednesday, I decided to approach her as she was leaving his house. Mrs. Wiseman, might we talk? I caught up with her as she walked toward her car. I'm sorry, but I'm in a rush, she said. Does your hubby know about the Wednesday meetings, Mrs. Wiseman? My question caught her off guard, exposing a common secret. When she hesitated, I wondered if there was something else to the narrative. "So what do you need?" she finally asked. "Mrs. Wiseman, this is just a discussion. Let me buy you a coffee from the cafe across the street. This is a public space, and I pledge not to hurt you." We found empty chairs, and I began the conversation by asking if she remembered her spouse returning home from an injury more than a year earlier. He had a dislocated shoulder from many fractures. She verified that she recalled. Then I admitted that I was the cause of these injuries. I explained that I had found him in bed with my wife and challenged him. He attempted to discredit me. I took affairs into my own hands. Did he explain that he is no longer a partner at his company? She shakes her head. I tackled this topic too subtly. I'm now looking for methods to get him in even more trouble. "Mrs. Wiseman, I assume you are aware that your husband has previously behaved in this manner?" I asked. "Yes. It was normal for our entire marriage. As you may have observed, I've recently been having extramarital affairs. 2. One of them is Ryan, whom I saw this morning, smiling gently. She glanced at me and said, I do not mean to offend you, Mr. Jacobs, but I can't help but wonder what your wife was thinking when she said Randy was great in bed. Maybe she was insane, or perhaps she was captivated. He's quite good at it, but not in bed." My ex-wife was also unable to provide me with a satisfactory explanation. She simply hates herself for betraying me so readily. She is extremely sorry. "Do you like Mrs. Wiseman, put up with his adultery and find solace elsewhere?" I inquired with disappointment in my voice. Mrs. Wiseman seems to follow my train of thought. "I see what you mean, Mr. Jacobs. Did you really expect to meet a devoted woman who would be surprised by her husband's infidelity? Perhaps you were hoping for a divorce," she remarked, recognizing my intentions. "I'm sorry for disappointing you, Mr. Jacobs. Over the last 8 years, I've had the most profound closeness of my life. Certainly not with my hubby. It's very wonderful. I hope we could meet more than once a week, but I need to be careful not to get detected. I am attempting to be circumspect, but it appears that I am not being sufficiently circumspect. You figured it out immediately. You have to understand that I adore Randy. I once loved sincerely, but his cheating ended that love. Having children complicates things, Mr. Jacobs. I don't suppose you have any children together. Regardless, in our partnership, only I have financial resources. I inherited a significant trust fund from my grandfather. If we ever part up, I could have to give him alimony. However, I am not convinced about it. Maybe these monies are safe. I never considered getting divorced, due to her children. For their sake, I keep Randy with me because, despite his imperfections, he is a decent father. Mr. Jacobs, I try to be discreet, but it appears that Randy is aware of my relationships with other guys. On Wednesday evening, I don't have time to tidy up, after meeting with Ryan. I have a feeling he is aware. Despite his confidence in his ability to cuckold other men like you, I think he can just pretend, she replied, smiling. I'd want to have my needs met more frequently than once per week. Are you prepared to reciprocate the intimacy? I would gladly assist you in carrying out your revenge. Are you free on Friday mornings? I prefer the morning because I need to pick up the kids from school in the afternoon. I've accepted that Wiseman will not divorce in the future, but perhaps I could try sleeping with his wife as retaliation. It's claimed that revenge is best served cold. My name is Esther. Mr. Jacobs, if we're going to have a secret connection, I'd like to know your name too. My name is Ronald Esther, and I can't wait until Friday. I know where you live. Why don't I come over at 10 o'clock? The children will most likely be at school by now, I said. She nodded in accord. She was not what I expected, but she was an incredible woman. I couldn't resist her charms since I met my wife and her husband. I have not had close relationships with anyone. It appeared to me that this was the correct decision. We closed the chat by agreeing to meet on Friday, which was not what I expected. I eagerly awaited the conclusion of the stillness. The prospect of seeking solace in Wiseman's wife, despite her lack of physical attractiveness, sounded appealing. I couldn't wait to know her better. I had no idea how happy that would make me that Friday morning. We had an unexpectedly good time together, and then we slept side by side, cuddling as if to reinforce the reality of our common experience. I instantly understood that we had a deeper connection than just physical desire. We had casual discussions at first, but then she mentioned that our wives might trade us for each other. She praised me by calling me handsome, and in return, I expressed my surprise. Why would your husband look for someone else when he has such a wonderful wife waiting for him at home every Friday? We met in the same way till that terrible day came. She lovingly kissed my cheek before delivering those dreadful words. Ron, we need to chat. When she kissed me with exceptional passion, attempting to relieve the tension, I couldn't shake the sensation that she was about to end our relationship. Ron, I've already stated that I am from an affluent family. I have a trust fund, which is probably why Randy married me. I represented a visually appealing life partner and, more crucially, a source of financial stability. What I didn't realize was the depth of this money. My grandfather was a true tycoon, with an unimaginable money and spending habits. If someone could squander this wealth, it would be his sole source of air. My grandfather doubted his son's capacity to manage money responsibly, so he gave him a monthly allowance for comfort, not larceny. The remainder of the money was put into a trust fund for me, which I will be able to access when I become 38 years old. I'm not sure why this number was chosen as the age for access, but the deadline is approaching in just 8 months. After spending time with you on our first Friday together, I felt compelled to learn more about my trust money, particularly in regards to divorce. It is entirely secure. Randy has no rights to it. I brought it into our marriage, and neither of us have replenished it. It has stayed mostly unchanged, with the option to withdraw a small sum each year. My financial advisor encourages me to follow specific regulations to protect the deposit's inviolability, which he believes is critical. Although he is normally assured in its safety, I question if I truly need Randy in my life. Can I give him an infinite number of visits with the children as determined by us? I realized I'd come to terms with Randy and no longer loved him. Why should I stay with a partner who keeps cheating on me? I understand it may appear deceptive, but he cheated on me before I cheated on him. Ron, I am not asking you to replace Ryan. I want to express that I have feelings for you. I want to see you as frequently as we both wish, and I believe we can be more than simply casual partners. I'm ready to depart, Brian, if you're ready to join me. Esther, I believe this is the most crucial conversation of our lives. I waited for her to show her gratitude before saying goodbye. I wholeheartedly support your proposal. Like you, I initially saw it as a method to exact retribution. But now I realize that it is evolving into something more profound. We continued to meet every Friday until we had properly addressed everything. She informed me she met Ryan on Wednesday, but merely to say goodbye. Ron, I've devised an insidious but intriguing scheme. Let me divulge my strategy, which I intend to surprise Randy with next Friday morning after she shares her proposal. A broad grin flashed across my face. She was a genius. The following Friday arrived. Esther and I were fully engrossed in our typical Friday morning trip. At this time, our passion for one other seems inexhaustible. We had no idea that a man named William Fox, dressed in a scruffy business suit, was calmly sitting in the living room below, conducting business. Suddenly, we heard a voice say, "Who the hell are you? What are you doing here? Where's Esther?" Randy was summoned by his master to an urgent midday meeting. Despite his persistent pleas for additional information, she emphasized that it was critical and begged him to come. "Are you Mr. Wiseman, sir? Your wife informed me that you were coming." Randy approached and heard a voice. "She's upstairs with her escort if you'd like to join them." Ryan's voice resonated across the room, prompting us to stop the talk. Esther was looking forward to his arrival while I was distracted and lost in my own thoughts. Esther took the initiative. "Come on, Ron. Show me what you are made of. You are superior to my spouse in every way," she screamed, attempting to persuade me. "Randy, sweetie, you seem upset. Relax. I'm simply having some fun on the side. Exactly like you." With that, I turned around, allowing Randy to see who was in bed with his wife. The cuckold himself. "You must be joking," he exclaimed. "Why would you bring this clumsy guy into our bedroom? Get rid of him before I lose my cool." I got out of bed and went over to him. "So, what do you think of my answer? And, in terms of threats, do you feel yourself to be that powerful? Remember, I promised you a visit to the doctor. He seemed terrified, but I calmed him down. Do not worry. We've got something else for you. There is a surprise waiting for you under the pillow." I escorted him to his bed, and as he reached beneath the pillow, he pulled out an envelope. "Esther," and I said with one voice, "You have been served." William Fox, who followed us upstairs, promptly snapped a photo of us. It's official. We did everything perfectly, I declared. Randy froze in surprise, appearing as stunned as when I dislocated his shoulder once. Esther gave Randy a gentle slap in the face to bring him back to reality, then explained that what he was suffering was simply vengeance for his acts against me. She publicly declared that she no longer loved him because of his infidelity during their marriage, and that her feelings had evolved into genuine neglect. Esther told him that she would not stand between him and their children, offering him complete access to them. She even offered him the services of a lawyer if he desired, believing that for the sake of the children, they could handle the divorce matter calmly, rather than turning it into a bloody battle. Randy stayed calm and nodded in accord with her statements. Despite his gruff personality, he was no idiot. He accepted that his marriage was ended and that fighting it would be a waste of time and resources. Standing there, I witnessed his world shatter. My first goal was met. I successfully divorced Kaylee, and with my mother's help, I did it with grace and dignity. Recognizing her error, Esther accepted responsibility for the consequences and apologized profusely. My mother's warnings proved accurate. I was able to secure a significant settlement from Carly's employers, and with Esther's assistance, I successfully turned over Wiseman's script, eventually teaching him a lesson. The manipulator was duped, and I played a role in destroying his marriage. Furthermore, perhaps I fulfilled Carly's wish when she said, "Don't let my mistakes define your future. Find someone who truly deserves you. Create a family. Find happiness together. Make your parents proud of you and enjoy your life to the fullest." Despite Carly's mistakes, her wise words stayed with me even in the darkest moments. After going through all of this, I concluded that karma exists. I broke up with Carly without malice. I did not seek vengeance on her, but no matter how it happened, karma struck her. She was recently discovered with another man in her bed. The offended spouse was furious when she discovered her husband with another woman in their marital bed and poured boiling water from the kettle over the cheaters. As a result, they were transferred to the hospital with severe burns. Carly is no longer as beautiful as she once was. Her face is severely damaged. She probably considered the story behind her actions as well. From a young age, I was a driver in this. I found my calling. I was involved in freight transportation. It was a nerve-wracking job at times, but I knew my business well enough to deal with any difficulties. I had a wife named Amanda. We met while we were still very young. Those were enjoyable student years. My friend Albert and I once attended a cheese fair. Albert dragged me there, claiming that we could eat cheese for free because there wasn't much else to do. I agreed. The weather was quite hot. There were many people at the fair, and tables were set up with small portions of cheese for sampling. Albert shamelessly ate various types of cheese, and I smiled as I watched. I wasn't particularly fond of cheeses. But suddenly my attention was drawn to Amanda. She was in a beautiful blue dress with a small woven basket. Her beautiful white curls gracefully framed her face and gently fell on her shoulders. Something in me changed at that moment. I felt the most tender feelings inside. It was quite silly, but I couldn't take my eyes off her. She stood in line to buy cheese as soon as she took out her wallet. Some guy nearby snatched it and ran into the crowd without hesitation. I ran after him. He tried to blend in with the people, but I was quite fast and agile, so I caught him. The guy realized he couldn't escape, dropped the wallet, and broke free. I picked up the wallet and didn't chase him again. I returned to the girl who stood in shock. I gave her back the wallet and looked into her incredibly beautiful eyes. She looked at me with gratitude. We started talking, and that day lit up with new colors for me. We walked for a long time until late in the evening. Amanda was an amazing girl, easy to talk to, and I didn't want to part with her. We continued to date, and it was simply magical. Gradually, our relationship became stronger and stronger, and over time, we got married. Now we lived in a beautiful house that I managed to buy. My youth was not very affluent, but I worked hard to earn everything I wanted. I diligently worked in free transportation, and it brought in a good income. I dreamed of a private house and a cozy place, so I decided to expedite the process. I borrowed money, took out loans. In the end, I did buy this house. It was our family nest where many happy days were spent. Time passed. I completely paid off all debts and continued to thrive in this business. Now we had an adult son, Kyle, who was already 25 years old. Kyle inherited my perseverance, and together we developed our freight transportation company. My experience and Kyle's help allowed us to run a fairly successful business. and we lacked nothing. My wife was a psychologist. She worked as a psychologist at a school. We didn't have any particular problems. We always lived harmoniously and happily. I didn't notice any secrets or mysteries about Amanda. She was always open and sociable. I believe they had the strongest family without any issues, but I couldn't even imagine how wrong I was. A man named William moved to near us. He wasn't a bad guy, but he was too intrusive. He often invited himself over and invited us. Initially, everything was friendly, neighborly. I politely overlooked William's excessive intrusiveness, but he became more and more annoying. I even had a conversation with him about it. I told him directly that he shouldn't bother us so much. After all, we have our own family and responsibilities. It seemed to me that William understood me, but Amanda didn't want to understand me. She persistently defended William at that time. I didn't give it much thought, but soon unpleasant suspicions began to creep in. I noticed that Amanda had become a bit peculiar. Her behavior was secretive, yet agitated. She became nervous, twitchy. I tried to find out what was going on with her, but Amanda brushed it off and reassured me, saying that everything was fine and she had no problems. I believed her, but the events that unfolded started making me doubt more and more. Especially the raised toilet seat and lid caught my attention. Amanda had long accustomed me and Kyle to always keep the seat and lid down. She loved cleanliness and rules in the house, so this puzzled me greatly. Was there another man in our house? But Amanda didn't mention anything like that, and her neighbor hadn't visited for a long time. So what was going on? And it wouldn't be a big deal if it happened just once. I observed this feature multiple times. Then I started noticing that booze from the bar was disappearing. But Amanda rarely drank before. Fruits and champagne appeared in the fridge, and I observed empty bottles in the garbage. All of this seemed pretty bizarre. I could be away from home for several days. I had many visits and meetings to enhance the business at home. There was only Amanda, but what was she up to? Amanda, please sit down. I want to chat to you. I asked Amanda while we were at home. Yes, Peter, what's happening on? I can see that something is happening. There's someone unknown in the house. I have noticed the lifted toilet seat and lid several times. Alcohol has started to disappear from the bar. The refrigerator is full of fruits and champagne. What does all of this mean? Peter, have you decided to lecture me again? Yes. I began drinking a bit. Sometimes my pals come over. We chat. What is wrong with that? Do your pals lift their toilet seats and lids? What rubbish! Of course not. Maybe you saw it after I cleaned the toilet. How fantastic! I haven't noticed it in so many years, and now I see it all the time. And is William following your buddies again? You're paranoid. Peter, our neighbor, has nothing to do with this. He stopped visiting us after I yelled at him. I'm simply trying to relax a little. There's nothing more. Why does it feel like you aren't telling me everything? Peter, I'm not going to constantly explain or prove things to you. I am startled by your lack of trust. We've been living together for years, and I assumed you had no cause to suspect me of anything. And now you're scolding me like a guilty schoolgirl. I am not cheating on you, and I don't intend to do so. I didn't think about it, and I am not hiding anything from you, okay? Amanda, I adore you so much, and I'm trying to figure out what's happening. I can see you're acting weirdly. Don't worry, darling, everything's fine. There is no cause to be concerned. Everything remains the same as always. So don't become stressed out and worried. I'll prepare a celebratory dinner and we'll spend the evening. Just fantastic. Amanda uttered many comforting words, but I remained concerned. I tried to convince myself that everything was all right and that I was simply overthinking. However, our neighbors remain in my thoughts. Could that scoundrel be having some fun with my wife? Just thinking about it made me want to burn everything to the ground. I attempted to carry on with my normal life and hobbies, but feel unpleasant inside me. It did not subside. All of my chats with Amanda came to nothing. Either she was lying to me or I was losing my mind. My suspicions may easily end our marriage. Something had to be done. But what do I tell Amanda? Or keep a constant eye on her? It was quite dumb, and I didn't have time for it. I thought for a long time about what to do next. Everything boiled down to our house. There was something going on there, and I decided to investigate. I requested a covert surveillance system. It was fairly basic. When Amanda wasn't home, I mounted cameras throughout the basement. I had a stash with a connected hard drive where I saved all of the recorded videos. Finally, everything was prepared. I was preparing to travel for a few days on business. Amanda behaved as usual. I didn't see anything strange. I packed things and departed, but as soon as I left, I felt uneasy inside. My work travel lasted a few days. There were numerous jobs ahead of me, but I was unable to concentrate on any of them. Amanda absorbed all of my thoughts. I decided I needed to hurry home. I couldn't wait to review the surveillance camera footage. I felt something horrible. When I unexpectedly returned home, I envisioned discovering Amanda with a partner, but it did not happen. I entered the house, but there was no one there. The house was neat and orderly. The trash cans were empty, and there were no strange items. Still, I went down to the hard drive and attached it to the computer. A boring moment in the video froze. There was no one home. I fast-forwarded the movie to the evening Amanda arrived at home. She began preparing something in the kitchen as it became absolutely dark outside. The doorbell rang. Apparently, her pals had arrived. I observed a man approach and open the door. But on the doorsteps was someone I never expected to see. It was neither the neighbor nor Amanda's buddy. It was Thomas, an employee at Amanda's school. I knew about this guy. Amanda mentioned him. She felt sorry for him, whereas I saw him as a slacker who refused to work. He couldn't graduate school despite being 18. He acted arrogantly, hiding behind his father, who was a senior official. His father wanted Thomas to succeed in his studies and graduate from school. However, this little bastard had no intention of making any changes in his life, and they couldn't expel him from school. And now he comes into my house as if it were his own. He grabs my wife, throws her into the couch, and begins licking her all over. I was astounded by what I witnessed. These bastards had sex in a variety of postures. Amanda acted like a prostitute in explicit pornography. It was simply dreadful. I couldn't conceive such a thing. I was overcome with heat after witnessing this. A chilly perspiration spilled from my forehead. Nausea engulfed me. Confusion and dismay filled my head. I sat with my eyes wide open, motionless. I wasn't sure what to do. Then rage began to rise. I recall how my breathing got more laborious. Rage shook my body. I clenched my fists while waiting for Amanda. Amanda remained absent as evening approached. It seemed strange, and she should have returned home from work long ago. I waited patiently, sitting in the dark and looking out the window. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the creaking lock. Amanda entered the home. I approached the hallway and was taken aback. Amanda had arrived with that despicable wretch, Thomas, and they quickly began kissing and undressing. I grabbed a bat and hit Thomas on the head. Amanda screamed, and I knocked her out, leaving the lover unconscious on the floor. I had the urge to dismember them and throw the pieces in the trash. However, a revenge plan began to form in my mind. I dragged these wretches into the shed and tied them to the chairs. Then I started making a device out of 2 drills. "Wake up, you bastards!" I yelled and doused them with a bucket of cold water. "Peter! Peter! What are you doing?" Amanda screamed with fear. "Shut up, creature! I will explain what I am going to do," I responded with a madman's smile. "Free me! You sick bastard! Do you happen to know when my father is? He will bury you!" Thomas, the obnoxious one, started arrogantly. "How brave you are when your daddy solves all of your problems, but he won't help you anymore. You'll squeal like a pig as I drill through your thick skull. I will transform your brains into Swiss cheese and your skulls into calendars," I replied. "No, Peter, please do not do this. I am guilty. I lied to you. Yes, I cheated on you with this guy. I am guilty, terribly guilty, but you don't need to do this. I'll explain everything to you," Amanda pleaded. "Shut up, creature. I've seen it all. All your escapades were captured on a hidden camera. It's disgusting, and I don't want to hear anything more. You'll pay for everything now," I declared. "You won't dare. You won't do this," Thomas spat. "You're right, little bastard. I'm not a butcher or a doctor. I abhor digging into your flesh. That's why I've devised this not-so-clever contraption. Take a look in the mirror. Drills are attached to the structure aimed at your heads from above. I'll pull this rope, and the drills will start burrowing into your skulls." "Oh yes, I'm not a barbarian. I found some painkillers in the first aid kit and injected a bit into your heads. I apologize, but it's all I have. Besides, they say brain surgeries should be done with the patient conscious, so enjoy," I explained and showed the device hanging over their heads. "Now, Mr. Peter, please don't do this. I understand. Forgive me, I'm a real monster, I know. Please let us leave. Don't do this," Thomas urged. "Oh, I see. All your courage disappeared instantly, but I don't care. Nothing will save you now. Let the show begin, I replied as I stood behind these miserable individuals. The boom of the ignited drills resonated through the space. The drills whirred above the heads of these wretches. They stayed utterly immobile. I tightly secured and positioned their heads in a way that rendered them immobile. They helplessly shouted in agony. The drills approached their skulls. The room filled with the fragrance of bird bones. The drills began drilling into the bone and rapidly heated up. Small streams of smoke, accompanied by a horrible odor, filled the air. These wretched people shook and shouted in dread. Their grief had devoured them. Their shouts grew louder as blood poured into their eyes and mouths. I'd never heard such cries before. The sound was one of true misery and horror. But I had no intention of slaughtering these wretched people. Everything was staged in reality. The drills were drilling into regular steaks for bones that I had taken from the refrigerator. I squeezed a little blood off the beef chunks and mixed it with water and red food coloring that I had at home. Amanda adored making different pies and cakes, typically with bland food dyes. However, the taste of blood remained authentic due to the presence of real blood in the meat. "Well, bastards, how does it feel? Can you still speak? Have you transformed into a vegetable?" I shouted out to these beasts. "Peter, enough! Please stop!" "What are you doing now?" Amanda yelled. "Oh, so you can still speak? Then let us continue." I switched on the drill a few more times, and they wailed like unkilled pigs. "All right, bastards, you are now able to regain consciousness." I roared and tossed meat at their faces. "I will let you go, but I do not want to see you anymore. And if any of you dare to cross my path again, I will thoroughly drill it into your minds. I will disembowel your miserable bodies. Now get out of here," I said, and untied these wretches. These wretches ran like they were professional marathoners. Their heels glistened across the neighborhood. Anger still burned within me, and I was relieved that I had not slain these monsters. I had scared them quite a bit. They'd remember the horror for the rest of their lives, and I didn't care what this bastard's father did. However, time passed, and no charges were filed against me. Nobody came to me. Amanda also did not show up at home. I tossed all of her belongings on the street and told her to come get them when I wasn't home, or I'd lose control and hurt her. I quickly discovered that Father Thomas had been caught accepting a big bribe, which was why he had no time for me. He was presumably a rare bastard like his son. The father went to prison for an extended period of time. The next difficult phase was Amanda's divorce. After all, this lustful beast will try to steal as much property as possible from me. Although everything here was purchased with my money, and I did not want to give this creature anything, I was willing to spend a large sum of money to lawyers, just so that this creature would not receive anything. This was difficult, but fortunately, an unforeseen incident rescued the day. Karma caused this bitch to suffer. There was a scandal in her school. It turns out that this scum hung together with other high school pupils at school. I developed a taste for it. All of this nonsense came to light at the perfect time. Evidence, images, and videos of these horrible entertainments have surfaced. Amanda lost everything at 1 minute. She was jailed for child molesting. I didn't expect her to say such terrible things, but it was true. Amanda did not survive her imprisonment. She hanged herself in her cell. As for Thomas, he got drunk and hung around with other losers like him. In one day, he was struck by a car. This idiot did not make it out alive. So the nasty story came to a conclusion. So my new story began. I was prepared to live the rest of my life alone. This tragic scenario did not make me pleased, but I had not expected anything else. But fortune decided to save me from this unfortunate turn of events. I met Jennifer. I met this amazing woman at a regular store. She purchased a large number of items, but she misplaced her bank card and did not have enough cash to cover everything. I politely offered to pay. Jennifer disagreed, but I insisted and paid. Then I took her home. She stated she still had money at home and would give it to me straight soon. We started talking while driving and eventually decided to grab coffee together. Jennifer proved to be an amazing woman who offered me hope for happiness, so it occurred. Jennifer and I grew close. She too had long since abandoned the dream of a happy family life. But we've both realized that we can be happy today. We lived together and cherished each new day without recalling our faults from the past. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe. if you haven't already. Also, write a comment below with your thoughts on what transpired. Take care.